You spent a decade learning to kill cleanly, quietly. The government paid you to do it. One day you stopped working for the government. This is what happens when the most dangerous man in the room switches sides, and the cartel he joins becomes the most feared organization on the planet. Level 1. The breaking point. Most Special Forces operators don't just wake up one day and join a cartel. There's a fracture point, always. For some, it's money. A Delta Force soldier in 2005 made roughly $54,000 a year. The cartel offered 10 times that per month. For others, it's something darker. Combat deployments that never officially happened. Brothers killed in operations that were never acknowledged. A government that trained you to cross every moral line imaginable, and then acted like those lines still existed when it was inconvenient. Here's what that does to a man psychologically. It creates what researchers call moral injury. Not PTSD from fear, but PTSD for betrayal. And betrayed men with Tier 1 training are extraordinarily dangerous. The most documented case of this exact pipeline? Los Zetas. In 1999, 31 members of Mexico's elite Special Forces unit, the GAFE, trained directly by the United States Army at Fort Bragg, deserted en masse. They didn't go home. They went to work for the Gulf Cartel. And within 3 years, they didn't work for anyone anymore. Level 2. Onboarding into hell. The cartel doesn't hand you a gun and a paycheck on day one. They test you. Not because they doubt your skills. They recruited you precisely because of those skills. They test your loyalty, your willingness to cross the line you can never uncross. For Los Zetas recruits, that first line was an execution, on camera, to create leverage. You're now on video. You're now compromised. You belong to them. But here's what separates a Special Forces defector from a regular cartel recruit. You immediately become an asset, not a foot soldier. Your value isn't your trigger finger, it's your brain. You know how to run surveillance detection routes. You know how to set up a perimeter. You know how to identify a government informant by their behavior patterns, the way they linger, the way their eyes move, the way they check their phones. Within weeks, you're not doing the dirty work, you're designing it. Los Zetas founder Arturo Guzman de Sena, call signed Z1, former GAFE captain, immediately reorganized the Gulf Cartel's enforcement wing using military hierarchy. Ranks, call signs, standard operating procedures. Cartel violence went from chaotic to surgical overnight. Kidnappings stopped being sloppy. They became planned operations with exfil routes and contingencies. Rival cartel members weren't just killed, they were eliminated using ambush techniques borrowed directly from military doctrine. The Mexican government suddenly realized they had trained their own worst enemy. Level 3. Your role. The architect. At this level, you're not pulling the triggers, you're running training camps. Los Zetas established actual military-style training facilities in the Mexican states of Tamaulipas and Veracruz. Recruits went through physical conditioning, weapons handling, tactical driving, communications, a curriculum that looked almost identical to what you'd find at Fort Benning. You teach recruits how to shoot from moving vehicles with accuracy, how to set up a hasty ambush on a convoy, how to use encrypted radios, how to move a kidnapped victim across 3 state borders without detection. You also become the cartel's intelligence officer. In 2010, Mexican authorities discovered that Los Zetas had built an independent cellular network, their own towers, their own encrypted communications infrastructure, because they knew how government signals intelligence worked. They'd been trained on it. Think about that. A drug cartel with its own telecommunications network specifically designed to defeat NSA-style intercept operations. That's not street-level criminality. That's nation-state-level operational security, built by people who used to work for a nation-state. Your days now look less like a gangster movie and more like a classified government facility. Morning briefings, intelligence reports, personnel assessments, asset management, and the only difference? The assets are human beings. The intelligence is about rival trafficking routes, and the personnel reports include body counts. Level 4, the economy of violence. Here's where it gets brutally cold. You don't just apply military tactics to killing, you apply them to economics. Los Zetas didn't just traffic drugs. Under the influence of their military leadership, they diversified systematically, strategically, into kidnapping, extortion, human trafficking, oil pipeline theft, and gambling. By 2012, the DEA estimated Los Zetas were generating between $2 billion and $3 billion annually. Pipeline theft alone, tapping Pemex, Mexico's national oil company, brought in an estimated $1 billion per year at its peak. They didn't hack the pipelines randomly. They mapped them, surveilled them, identified extraction points with minimal security and maximum output. Exactly how you'd approach an infrastructure sabotage mission, except in reverse. Meanwhile, the violence escalated in ways that were psychologically calculated, not just brutal. The massacres, the mass graves, over 300 bodies discovered in San Fernando, Tamaulipas in 2011, the public executions posted online. This wasn't savagery for its own sake. This was information warfare. Create fears so overwhelming that witnesses don't testify, police don't investigate, and rival organizations don't encroach. You helped design this because you know that in any conflict, the psychological dimension is as important as the kinetic one. Sun Tzu didn't write about drug cartels, but Los Zetas read the same manual. Level 5. The hunt begins. At some point, the people you used to work for come looking, and this is where your story becomes uniquely terrifying for both sides. You know, their playbook. Every playbook. You know how the DEE builds informant networks. You know how the CIA runs source operations. You know, the communication patterns that signal a surveillance operation is ramping up. Every time an informant got close to Los Zetas' leadership, they were identified and killed. Between 2007 and 2012, dozens of informants working for U.S. and Mexican agencies were executed. The operators who defected became the cartel's counterintelligence unit, hunting the hunters. In 2009, the United States formally designated Los Zetas as one of the most dangerous criminal organizations on Earth. The DEA, FBI, and HSI launched Operation Decade, a multi-agency task force dedicated solely to dismantling the organization. It took years, because every tactic they used, the Zetas had a counter to it, because someone on the other side of the table had helped write the original tactics. Level 6. The End Game. This story doesn't end well. It never does. Zed 1 Arturo Guzman de Sena was killed in a restaurant in Matamoros, Mexico in 2002, caught off guard. Even the best operators have blind spots when they feel invincible. His successor, Heriberto Lozano, Zed 3, ran Los Zetas for a decade with iron discipline. Former Geffen, trained by the U.S. Army, killed by Mexican Marines in 2012. His body was stolen from the morgue by cartel operatives, a final act of control even in death. Miguel Angel Trevino Morales, Z40, took over, not a military defector, but shaped entirely by the military culture the defectors created, captured in 2013. The founders built something so effective it outlasted them. But here's the real ending, the one that never makes the news. The operators who didn't get killed? Some are still out there. The DEA's most wanted list has names the public never sees. Former soldiers, former intelligence officers, men whose official records show them as missing in action or deceased. bureaucratic cover stories for men who walked across a very different kind of wire. And here's the question that should keep every defense analyst up at night. If a single special forces unit from Mexico, trained briefly by the US, built an organization that took 15 years and billions of dollars to partially dismantle, what happens when someone with more training, more resources, and more grievances makes the same choice? The most dangerous weapon any government builds isn't a missile or a drone, it's a human being. And sometimes they have their own directions.